This is Martin Giles of the Guildford Dragon News, and this morning I'm with the Mayor of Guildford, Councillor Richard Billington, in his parlour at Millmead. Richard, thank you very much for giving us this interview this morning and joining the Guildford Dragon. How has the coronavirus pandemic affected the mayoralty? What can't you do now and what can you still do?
I think, well, good morning to you. I think, I'll put this down. The situation for the mayoralty changed dramatically in the beginning of March. We had a programme lined up, and don't forget, the mayor has many roles. Chairing the council is, of course, the main one. But we use the mayoralty not just to represent the borough in other boroughs and across the county, but a major part of the mayor's function is to go out and raise money for charity. And we had a programme of charitable things lined up, and that just stopped dead. And that was tragic because it's even now there are charities out there struggling. So my main charities I was very pleased with, the Prostate Project, I think you remember, and also the Royal Surrey County Hospital charity. We gave them something in the order of £25,000 between them, hopefully made a major difference. But the other function of the mayor is really to go out and say thank you to people. We have so many really good people, organisations in this borough, and it's really nice for the mayor to be able to go out representing the borough and saying, well done guys, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing for your fellow Guildfordian, and in many cases at national levels.
But that all stopped.
Had to. We're doing this interview, as you can see, I've taken my mask off, you've still got yours on. We have to be separated. There's all these things that have come in, and I don't see they will go very quickly either. And you cannot continue the way that we used to run the mayoralty. Organisations running under the socially distant social distance policy, and so that's really put the skids under it.
But what is other things you still can do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the mayor is an elected councillor, so you still have your own ward people who have problems for them, need to represent them at the council, so you can still do those. Now, the other thing that's come of age now is video conferencing. Most people now can do some form of video conferencing on their computer, their desktop, laptop, and that's been an absolute boom because the government legislation was such that councils could continue their democratic function using video conferencing. And it's been bumpy. Found that as the mayor, it was essential to have somebody else near me who could actually watch a screen as well when it comes to voting. Because clearly, did he put his hand up? Was it her? But once you get past that, we're able to carry on a council meeting from people's own homes. That's serious social distancing. But we carried on the democratic function, that's important.
And indeed, we tried to conduct this interview online, but unfortunately the sound quality wasn't good enough, which is why we're doing it here. But we ought to also mention that another effect of the pandemic is that you're going to be the mayor of Guildford for 2 years, yes. Not one.
That's right. We couldn't hold we've got a lovely Guildhall that goes back centuries, but we couldn't meet there. We couldn't have a mass meeting as an annual council, but to bring my deputy Marsha Mosley in. So that's one thing. Also, with these restrictions coming in, I think they'll last in one form or another for many months. It really meant that Marsha's year would be cut down to almost 6 months. It will also give Dennis Booth, who's the next councillor coming through, wouldn't give him a fair run at being deputy. And being deputy mayor is where you learn the ropes, where you do some functions for the mayor, and it gives them a training ground. So I always say about deputy mayor, you're the mayor in training. And so it was decided that, and the law would allow me to do a second year. And I believe I'm the first councillor to do a second year since Alderman Taverner, I think it was, in 1918-19, when we had the flu pandemic at the end of the First World War.
Yes, we ran a story on that, thanks to Matthew Alexander, the honorary remembrancer. I'll put a link into the interview so people can have a look at that story. But it is a coincidence, isn't it? And that was another pandemic that caused that. Now, what is the one single standout example? I mean, I'm sure there are lots of examples of community spirit through this pandemic in Guildford. But what's the one that stands out for you as a really exemplary thing that people did?
I think one of the problems many people watching this narrowcast will understand, the care home or the care sector had a real beating because of this virus. And there is a care home out near Mount Brown, Pilgrim's Way, I can't, the name's gone. But their staff, rather than go home and run the risk of taking the virus back into the care home when they did their shift, they stayed camped in the garden of that care home. I just think that is fantastic. And I can tell you now, I'm going to be round there for a mayoral visit. As soon as I'm let off my chain, I'll be round there to thank them, because that's real dedication, certainly above and beyond.
Yes, I think it's Pilgrim's Care Home, and again, we covered that in the story, so the readers will be able to look at what happened there.
I just think people say, oh, it's all me. Nah, some people are me, but the vast majority are really caring people coming together in this pandemic, and I think we should be proud of it, and I think we will get back to normal, and as Her Majesty said, we will meet again, and when we do, a lot of these stories of care and community will come forward.
Okay, now mayoral duties, as you've already mentioned, include chairing council meetings, and you've had to adapt to chairing those meetings online. That must be tricky. Do you enjoy it?
Yes.
Do you enjoy it normally, and do you enjoy it now, and what are the pros and cons?
Right, let's deal with it normally. I always say the view from the bench is different, and it's the same in any organisation, Martin. You know, everyone says, oh, the guy at the top, oh, he's this. It's different when you're sat in that chair, and it is true, because you've got to concentrate, and for however many hours the meeting lasts, you have to stay switched on. And that can be quite challenging, because you're looking around the room, who wants to speak, you know, make a note of their name, who else, and you really are, and my role, I think that the mayor has to be apolitical, and I take that real seriously, so that I make sure that everybody, and it's easy in the room because you can see who wants to put their hand up, everybody gets a fair crack of the whip. And that's a challenge, but also a pleasure, because it is democracy. It's making sure that everybody has their say and represents their ward. So it is nerve-wracking, certainly the first few times. But I think that it's like, if you don't have stage nerves, you don't do a good stage performance, and you need to have that sharpness for that. It's different when you're on a video conference, because instead of going like a radar around the room to see who's watching, you're focused on a small screen, and then therefore you really are quite locked into that screen. And I hope we still manage to ensure that everybody that wants to speak can speak. And we use, I don't want to advertise particularly, but Microsoft Teams for that. And it requires discipline all round, from me as well, but also the individual councillors in their homes, to make sure they've muted their sound, not their camera. And so there's a lot more discipline involved. But it's challenging, but inevitably as a councillor you're a people person, so I really want to see them back when it's safe to go back in that chamber.
But the meetings are continuing, they are working,
yes.
Albeit they're not as good as meeting in person, but it is proceeding.
Yeah, and the staff here are still able to answer questions, because many of them will be working from home. They'll be having their own individual team meetings on video. So we're not at the same cracking pace that we might have been pre-March, but it's still going on, it's still holding together. The administration is administering, and the councillors are doing their duty as well.
And members of the public can listen in?
I think there's ways of it.
Yes,
sometimes you have to listen in on the sound.
You can dial into a number and hear.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, why does the mayor need to be an elected councillor? If you split away the council chairman role, which obviously needs to be an elected councillor, couldn't it be any local worthy? Couldn't it be an alderman or some other distinguished person locally? I've
thought about that. I think, mayor has no power in our system. I mean, all right, if you have an elected mayor like Manchester, say, then that's different.
Yeah.
But in our system, the mayor has no power at all, but he has a lot of influence. People will make time to listen to what the mayor says and what the mayor advises, and people will take advice. Now, I think that you're right. On one level, certainly with an alderman would be all right, but you could take Mr. or Mrs. Bloggs, say you're now the mayor, and they could do that ceremonial function perfectly adequately. But I think it's important that for the mayor to be a councillor, because you know your way around the council system. Because people will approach the mayor, but they might not approach their own ward councillor. And if you weren't elected, you go, well, I'll have to talk to someone in the council. I think it does shortcut a route into the council, because the mayor is able to go along. I could walk along the corridor here to the managing director and say, did you know that such and such an organisation's got this problem? And then, action could be quite speedy. But if you don't know your way around, it could be anybody, Martin, but it has, I think, got to be someone that's at least got an inside track to local government.
Okay. Now, the Conservative Group leadership election is being arranged, and I know this isn't part of your mayoral role, but it's obviously coming up, and I'm just wondering how you're going to view that. Will you be taking off your mayoral hat and sitting there just as a member of the Conservative Group when you have your meeting, or will you try and stay above the political side of it, even though it's an internal party matter?
Martin, you've got to understand the Conservatives went from being in control to being into a minority group. That is very, very tough for a political organisation. So therefore there's that sort of friction element. I am the mayor, and just as I'm totally apolitical to my council, they're all my councillors, and as far as I'm concerned, they're all equal. I will not vote, even vote. I will stay as independent of the Conservative group, because I don't think you can be completely impartial and independent to a councillor from a different party or group, and then suddenly become a rabid party member within. And I think that there's enough grown-ups to sort that out. But I will not be involved in any way politically until May the whatever next year.
Well, Councillor Billington, thank you very much for giving us your time, and good luck with the rest of the mayoral year.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.